What? Further? There will be live. Start the event with an open. Good afternoon. I'm Jonathan Weinhagen, President and CEO of the Minneapolis Regional Chamber. We're coming to you live from the iconic First Avenue stage in downtown Minneapolis for the 2021 Minneapolis Regional Chamber annual meeting. Most of you are joining us remotely, so that makes it all the more easier to call this an early happy hour, so grab a beverage and enjoy the show. Our annual meeting traditionally celebrates the great work of our organization and serves as an opportunity for us to showcase that work and thank all of you, our stakeholders and investors. This annual meeting is going to be a little bit different because this past year was a little bit different. Don't get me wrong, the Regional Chamber did incredible work and we're going to talk about that today. I'd argue more value than ever before. And we are deeply grateful for the engagement of our stakeholders and investors. But this annual meeting seeks to celebrate the work of our business community during what can only be described as a challenging and unpredictable year, and to offer a look ahead to the issues we'll tackle together in 2021. With your support, we are focused on building a stronger tomorrow. We hope that today's program will inspire you as you hear from state and local leaders, entrepreneurs who are shaping the future of our region, and partners that are helping us as we build the economy of the future, an economy that is more equitable and more just and improves the lives of more Minnesotans. We wouldn't be able to do this work without the incredible investment of our member stakeholders, and specifically those who have invested in supporting this program today. We'd like to recognize them now. Sponsor, Target. Our premier sponsor, Xcel Energy. Our supporting sponsor, RBC Wealth Management. Our contributing sponsors, McGough, the Minnesota Timberwolves and Minnesota Lynx, Mortensen, Wells Fargo. Our event sponsors, CenterPoint Energy, Comcast, Greater MSP, Sunrise Banks, the Minnesota Twins, Thrivent, Park Street Public, and US Bank. Our media partners, Minnesota Lawyer and Finance and Commerce, and our production partner, First Avenue and 7th Street Eatery. The Greater MSP business community is known for its resiliency, creativity, preparation, and innovation. And we found that it's more important than ever that we work together to strengthen our regional economy. Our presenting sponsor and partner, Target, embodies these exact qualities. Let's hear from Amber Kohler, Senior Director of Construction for Target.
Good afternoon. We're pleased to sponsor this event and join business, civic, and nonprofit leaders to discuss the year ahead. Target has a long-standing commitment to our hometown, helping contribute to our region's vitality and progress. This commitment grew even stronger in 2020. When the city began to rebuild with a deeper focus on community, inclusivity, and equality. Target had to rebuild as well. Our Lake Street store experienced significant damage and had to close for several months, which left many community members without access to the food and essentials they needed. And we knew we needed to engage the community to make sure this rebuild was a success. Take a look at this video here.
The events following George Floyd's murder really decimated this community. A lot of the people that were working in this store that were Target employees are from this community.
What we wanted to do is, so many teams have come together so quickly to really put this store back on its feet.
And that's what we demonstrated here, and it just makes me really happy and excited.
So not only was the Lake Street store one of the fastest rebuilds in our company history, it also reflected input from nearby residents, team members, and partners, from the updated store design to the products on the shelves to the art on the outside of the building. But our dedication to the community goes well beyond the walls of our stores. We truly believe a strong, vibrant, and growing economy is only possible when opportunities are available to all of our neighbors. Late last year, the Target Foundation invested more than $5 million in racial equity grants to over 70 nonprofits across the Twin Cities, serving Minnesota's Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities. A few of these grant recipients include the African American Leadership Forum, Latino Economic Development Center, Hope Community, and the American Indian OIC. As part of our efforts to advance social justice, we've also committed to providing 10,000 hours of pro bono consulting services for Black, Indigenous, and people of color-owned businesses in the Twin Cities. As part of that pledge, Target team members are volunteering with more than 20 local businesses, including Juxtaposition Arts and African Economic Development Solutions. We work closely with local partner Hands On Twin Cities in this effort, helping to connect local businesses with our pro bono efforts. We know there's still so much work to do, but with so many people and organizations dedicated to fostering change, our collective efforts will have a positive and lasting impact on our community. Target is excited and humbled to be part of this change. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Amber, and thanks to the entire team at Target. An incredible history of partnership and investment in this community, and you certainly showed up and doubled down in 2020. Now, on that note, throughout this past year, I have been extraordinarily proud to see the work of so many of our members and the business community as we've come together to support one another. I've been especially proud of the work of your chamber. We're fortunate to have had so many of the tools and talent in place to respond to the challenges that we faced in 2020. The Move Minneapolis team quickly recognized the implications and possible ramifications of our new world of remote work and created the Move Minneapolis Guide for Remote Work, Telework Strategies for Everyone. If you haven't checked it out, I'd encourage you to visit moveminneapolis.org and take a look at it. Our team at Real Time Talent responded to gather data about job losses due to closures, studies about neighborhood-level reports on the pandemic and occupational vulnerabilities, and forecasting economic impacts by industry for state, county, and collaborative partners. Our policy and community development teams tracked local and state legislation, relief packages, grant offerings, and ordinances. I can tell you our team was constantly communicating to our membership and stakeholders across the region. When called upon by the state of Minnesota, your chamber and partners like the Minneapolis Downtown Council banded together to distribute over 2 million masks to cities and partner organizations across Hennepin County for distribution to local businesses. This effort was deployed and organized in less than 48 hours. 2020 was most certainly a time in which quick but thoughtful action was required. We all learned to work at the pace of a pandemic. Our next guest is certainly no stranger to working at that pace. He's been the chief executive of our state, and he has been marshaling the work around pandemic response. It's my great pleasure to introduce Governor Tim Walz.
Well, Jonathan, thank you. Thank you, first of all, for your leadership, your partnership, and personally your friendship. To all the members of the Minneapolis Regional Chamber, Amber, the video from Target is uplifting. It lifts my spirit, and those stories are happening every day out of this community. As Jonathan said, it's almost become cliche, but it's what we've lived. 2020 has been incredibly difficult, and as we all know on this call, it's impacted folks differently. We know that from a health impact and an economic impact, communities of color have been hit very hard. Our businesses, as well as our large businesses, have had to readjust and understand what it means to work in a pandemic. And then, of course, as the world watched and we watched in horror as George Floyd died, we understood that the greatness of Minnesota also required us to be reflective and make the change, to know and let the world know that Minneapolis and this state, this is not just one of the nation's most vibrant cities. It's one of the world's most vibrant and inclusive cities. And we have more work to do, but I can attest to what Jonathan said. Minneapolis Regional Chamber has been at the heart of those changes. It's led on the front, and the businesses being represented here today have been at the forefront of making sure that happens. Our pledge to you as partners in state government is to make sure we're there to provide the resources necessary, the things you're talking about in smart housing, in workforce development, in transit. Some of the things that got lost in 2020 was West Light Rail funding, the full funding agreement from the federal government, and some of the things we know we need to continue to move forward. We also know that the rebuilding of especially Lake Street and other areas that were decimated in the civil unrest that happened, that's an absolute requirement. I am committed, and our budget that we unveiled this week, the COVID-19 recovery budget, is focused on the same values that you share, to make sure that the vibrancies of our community, so that the entrepreneurs and the innovators that are on this call today are there in their community and to feel safe in their community. And that means everyone feeling safe. And we can do that together. And then, of course, the thing that we all come back to is our children. Making sure our children have the opportunities that they deserve, recognizing that achievement gaps are not only holding back individual children and are simply immoral to not close. It's hurting our economic vitality. People come here, and those sponsors that I saw their names go by, whether they be the large corporations or the new startups, people want to relocate to an area where they know they're valued, where they know that they're respected, where they know they're part of that inclusive community, and that's Minnesota. And so I can tell you that through all this, the communication with the Minneapolis Regional Chamber has been absolutely critical. And as Jonathan said, when the state asked, all of you stepped up in so many ways, and I am grateful for that. We're moving into a new phase. I was just out visiting the Brooklyn Center vaccine, MaxVax site. We're getting more for the first time since this pandemic started. We have a clearer picture of what the federal government can do and will do to partner with. We're starting to get a handle on, and our state is now at a place where we're getting a little bit more control over the pandemic, even as it rages uncontrolled throughout the rest of the country. So 2021 will be brighter. It also opens up immense possibilities for us to tackle historic systemic racism and to make sure that everyone enjoys what Minnesota can be, a great place to live where you're valued and your children know that they're valued. So Jonathan, thank you for your work. We are incredibly and eternally grateful for all you've done during this time. And my commitment to each and every one of you is to put forward a budget and put forward a state that reflects the values that you care about and that we know makes our community stronger. So thank you, Jonathan.
Governor, thank you. Thank you for that partnership. It was a good reminder that some things did get lost in 2020, and I believe one of my last flights before the pandemic started was along with you to head to DC to make that pitch for the $1 billion investment in our transit system right back here in the state of Minnesota. So we'll look forward to getting together in person hopefully soon. I'd like to move us along. Any organization, certainly ours, that's doing incredible work, does that with so many different partners. We are very fortunate to be led by a board of directors that is passionate about the work that we do and that shows up in our community and in our organization every day. So it's my great pleasure to introduce our current board chair, Cassie Nelson.
Good afternoon. I'm Cassie Nelson, board chair of the Minneapolis Regional Chamber. This year has been unlike any other. As we've persevered through a global pandemic and come together to address systemic racism, our business community has shown resiliency and strength that gives us hope for a stronger tomorrow. As the largest and most diverse business association in the region, the Minneapolis Regional Chamber has helped lead the way in tackling our challenges. As many of you know, last September, the Minneapolis Regional Chamber and the Twin West Chamber merged. This historic consolidation brought together the assets of two of Minnesota's strongest business organizations to leverage our resources and relationships. As a result, the Minneapolis Regional Chamber is stronger than ever, and our ability to support businesses and drive economic growth has amplified. If this year has shown us anything, it is that every organization must seek out strong partnerships, deliver innovation, and focus on core mission. We are moving forward with more partnerships than ever before, and you'll hear more about them today. We are excited about the future of this organization. As the largest chamber in Minnesota with more than 2,300 member businesses, We believe we've strongly enhanced our ability to increase the value we bring to our members today and for decades to come. Thank you for being part of our civic-minded, forward-thinking business community. We are proud to be your partner.
Well, thank you, Cassie, for your remarks today, as well as for your leadership and support throughout the year. We're looking forward to the work ahead. This pandemic has heightened the stakes for everyone. It has also challenged us to think differently and to work together in ways we've never imagined. It has also shed the light on our small business and entrepreneur community. And we often talk about them being the backbone of our regional economy and our economy generally, and we've certainly seen that over the course of the last year. The three entrepreneurs who have joined me on stage this afternoon are showing us all how we can thrive even when we're facing some of the greatest challenges in history. They didn't skip a beat. In fact, they're forging ahead and showing us the way to a brighter future. I would argue that they each have a story not just of perseverance, but of acceleration. And that's very much the entrepreneurial spirit that they embody. So join me in welcoming to the stage Dana Frank of First Avenue, Houston White of HWMR, and Heidi Andermack of Chow Girls. Welcome. Thank you for joining me today. Fun to be back on stage, right?
I mean, even I get like still the little chills, like, oh wow. I mean, this is like the stage that Prince built in 1983 to shoot Purple Rain, right? It's like, it's pretty cool.
So, Dana, I want to talk about that a little bit. I mean, First Avenue celebrated its 50th anniversary this year.
Kinda, we tried to.
Right? Closed doors, didn't get to have the hundreds of people in here for that celebration. Initially when the stay-at-home order was issued, we were envisioning a couple of weeks of closure that certainly has turned into a much longer and more sustained closure as we've experienced. And it's led to some really innovative partnerships on the advocacy front. Can you talk to us a little bit about your effort to literally save our stages?
Yes, an effort that I am wearing. I'm like, yes. So what happened, let's see, right after the shutdowns, first South by Southwest closed, which in our industry was like, that was kind of a massive ripple. And then Seattle and DC and kind of the coast started putting capacity limits. And so in our business, we're only economically viable if we can pack this room 200 days a year. We can't operate at a 250 capacity limit, or, it costs us just as much to get 10 people in the door as it does to get 1,000 in. So we really rely on sellouts to keep us going. So, the capacity limits, when we saw that was just the complete shutter of our industry. And so there were a bunch of clubs from across the country that started, all talking on Zoom and on conference calls. And we realized that the only way we were going to survive it is if we banded together and advocated for federal support, because it was really a kind of wartime mentality of like, either we all survive or none of us survive.
Houston, I think I read a headline in the Business Journal not too long ago that said Houston White had a better 2020 than most of us. I think we could all agree. New partnerships with JCPenney, Target, US Bank, started the Get Down Coffee Company. You hosted the Be the Change golf tournament, turned that thing around on a dime. Can you talk to us a little bit about the mindset that led you to do all of these things in the middle of a global pandemic?
Yeah, man. First of all, shout out to this wonderful panel. These women are amazing and true examples of American ingenuity and the entrepreneurial spirit. So, my mindset was be nimble, be aggressive, and figure out where the opportunities lie. At 29 years old, I faced the Great Recession, and I was a depressed 29-year-old kid because my entire world was dependent on real estate development, which no longer could go. And so as a 40-year-old, I'm like, okay, we're all in this together, to Dana's point. What are the opportunities? And because folks were paying a lot of attention to things that they otherwise wouldn't in a busy, busy world, I thought, for instance, Be the Change would be a great opportunity to bring people together, to have conversations in an exclusive environment like a golf course about race, about our biases, but then also to make new friendships. This kind of made sense. And then with the corporations, because they were reeling, trying to figure out their new DEI goals and racial inclusion objectives, that was a good time for me to talk about how I could help them get to some of those goals creatively. So, you know, it's kind of like the matured entrepreneur who went through this before, just trying to figure out what opportunities I had and what I could do uniquely in this moment. So a little fearless, a little aggressive, a little more of a savvy vet than before, so. Yeah.
I love it. And Heidi, you know, we talk about a lot of heroes through this pandemic. I've been a long believer that the hospitality industry, restaurants and caterers have been many of the unsung heroes and some of those who have been the most impacted by what we've experienced over the course of the last 10 months. And in the midst of all of this, you stepped up to help your neighbors. To talk to us a little bit about, you know, the partnership with Loaves and Fishes and Second Harvest Heartland and local chefs and caterers like yourself to create Minnesota's Central Kitchen, and how that came to be and what it means to you.
Yeah, well, when on March 12th, Showgirls turned 16, and we had a big Sweet 16 party planned with 400 guests, and it was epic. And that morning, we had to cancel our big party because of the pandemic, and we donated all of our leftovers to Second Harvest Heartland, which is something we'd been doing for a while. Since the Super Bowl, we developed a relationship with them in helping them pilot a food rescue program where we donated leftover foods that could then be distributed to homeless shelters and places that needed it. And when the pandemic hit, we all sat together after our canceled party and watched the governor make the announcement on Friday, March 13th, that things were going to be shutting down. And our chef said, I'm going to call Second Harvest, see what we can do to work with them, because we're going to have this big, beautiful, empty kitchen, and there's going to be leftover food from all these restaurants closing. And on Sunday, March 15th, there was a meeting to bring together the minds to develop this plan. And on Tuesday, March 17th, we made our first 500 meals, and Loaves and Fishes distributed them. And since then, we've been making 9,000 meals a week, and we have a contract with Second Harvest Heartland to keep us going through September. And at right away, we had laid off 120 of 133 people, but since then we've been able to hire back some of those people, hire back new people. This program that we developed with Second Harvest has allowed us to employ chefs. So that was part of the mission, was to employ chefs, rescue food, and feed people who needed it.
Yeah, so not only goodness, but really part of your pivot as an organization.
Huge part of our pivot. It's saved our business.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
You know, Dana, I was doing a little Googling before I got up here, and an article that feels like a lifetime ago that I think referred to you as the queen of the stages before the latest effort. You'd been on a little bit of a bender, right? We got First Avenue, obviously. We've got the Turf Club, the Fitz, managing the Palace Theater. We're talking about the Upper Harbor and a future there. Talk to us a little bit about the economics of a place like this, of an independent venue, and what really has been driving you from an employment standpoint, from a tax base standpoint, from a vibrancy and livability standpoint, you know, what this place means to a region and to a community.
Yeah, our goal at First Avenue is to be the primary partner of artists and agents in Minneapolis, St. Paul. And so we really want to be able to service the artists as they grow their careers. We want to help them grow. We want to help them build an audience in the cities here, and really make Minneapolis, St. Paul one of the best live music cities in the world, and one of the best places to live if you love live music and love the arts and love going out. And so really key to that is to have venues at every level that can service those artists. So, you know, the first time an artist might come into town, like Nirvana or Garbage or The Replacements, they might play the entry right next door here, right, to anywhere from 20 people to 250. And then as people go to the show and they get radio play and articles, then they'll, you know, jump up to the Turf Club in Midway at 375 capacity, or maybe they'll go straight to the Fine Line at 700 capacity. until like they kind of graduate to the First Avenue main room, you know, and maybe get their star on the wall before going up to the Palace, et cetera. So that's really our business model, is to be able to serve the artists, serve the community and the concert goers at every single level of their career.
Yeah, we talk a lot about choosing the economy we want to reemerge into, and I know that I want venues like First Ave to be a part of that, and I can't wait to get back here with hundreds of my closest friends. In Houston, earlier we heard our presenting sponsor Target and their story of the Lake Street remodel, the reinvestment, the commitment after the civil unrest that impacted that store. When it reopened, your Black Excellence brand was front and center. Can you talk to us a little bit about, one, how does that happen? And two, a little bit of the essence behind that brand.
How does that happen? A whole lot of grind. And getting the CEO to come to the barbershop and talk. But, in all honesty, it was a year-long conversation about Target's goals of retaining their Black talent. And what's blacker in America than a barbershop? Nothing. And so we have some insight into what could be helpful to retaining that talent and helping to grow that talent. And, the Lake Street store, a lot of folks don't know, it's a Black man that runs the Target stores in all of Minnesota, Cephas Williams, who, when he was recruited here, Caroline Wanga, before she went to Essence, brought us together over a haircut. And then we became friends, and he told me about all the things he wanted to do at that Lake Street store before any civil unrest, before COVID. And we had plans of like festivals in the parking lot and all kind of cool things. And so it was really conversations with him and some of the senior leadership, Kira Fernandez, around we want to be represented, right? We want to open this store back up with a message and a commitment more than just a good PR statement. What can we do? And they reached out, and I got to give Target a lot of credit because they moved heaven and earth to get that to happen in a month. Jill Sando, the chief merchant, got on the phone with me and said, let's go. We're going to break all protocol and get this done. And that's kind of how it happened, and the idea of seeing like Black excellence in a store that so First Avenue, I'm going to tell on myself, my favorite thing to do was watch Prince Purple Rain over and over and over again when I first came in from Mississippi in 1985. And then when I went to Target for the first time, it was earth-shattering because I'm from Mississippi. Kmart was the big store then. And Target just had a different kind of vibe and feel. And so for me as a Black kid from Mississippi to have a brand that says Black excellence in this store, it was like full circle, like, okay, progress, right? We've got a long way to go. But I felt my grandmother's spirit and like, all those people who raised me and said, this is possible, keep going. And it was like just this short moment of like, yeah, this is really cool and it's happening. So it was huge.
That is awesome. Heidi, we talked a little bit about the impact on the hospitality industry, and it's been devastating. But we know that there's light at the end of the tunnel. We're in the tunnel right now. Can you tell us, what's your prediction? What does the catering and hospitality industry look like as we get to the other end of this pandemic? And what can those watching and the community at large be doing to help support you? Again, under that kind of theme of choosing the economy that we want to emerge into.
Yeah, well, we expect that catering isn't going to come back full swing until later in 2021, 2022, because of capacity packing people in. But we also, one of the things that we've had to do, and we've seen many restaurants have to do too, is to innovate and create new systems and new products. And that's something that I think people can do is by ordering takeout and looking for new ways to do events. So if you're having a Zoom meeting with your work team, you can bring in some catering and have it delivered to each different person, individual meals. We're also doing live Zoom events. We've had to retool a whole online ordering system. I know a lot of restaurants that had to do that. So for people to be patient as we're all working through these new systems is key. And supporting us during that, but also as we move forward to continue to use these systems, because we've invested so much energy and money into developing these new systems. We need to keep them rolling, and that's kind of some of the future of what it will be.
That's great. You know, a theme of all of your stories and all of your years was really around partnerships and relationships and grinding it out. And I think we've heard that in each of your stories. As you think about emerging into an economic recovery in the future, how are you thinking differently about partnerships, how we need to come together to do the work that we can and should be doing with each other? Maybe start with Dana.
You know, I think the one thing this year taught us, or taught me more than anything, is just the power of community and how important it is, and how grateful I am to live in Minneapolis, St. Paul, you know, with these amazing entrepreneurs. I mean, what incredible assets we have, and how we all really have to take care of each other, you know, during this time.
That's great. How about you, Houston?
Yeah, you know, culture plus capacity. That's been my line. When Greg Cunningham and Reba came to the barbershop, I had a slide deck. It said culture plus capacity. Reba's like, what's that? Your capacity, I'm culture. Together we can make magic. It's like the work that we do together with the Chamber. Camden Town can't come to a reality without, you know, the boss lady, Christine, Tisa, and all those folks. But you all provide the culture, the capacity, and we bring culture. And so that's been my motto in trying to create partnerships, that we bring something different to the table and unique, and then we can really get at some really good outcomes. And so that's it for me.
And Heidi, I'm going to give you the last word.
Thanks. Similar to Houston, I've been active in the community for a long time, and I've had a lot of staff and family and friends question, you know, why are you always giving away so much stuff, and why do you always volunteer so much? And it's because we just went into it together, and it's just a bond that you can't find unless you've worked on it. You know, it's like you don't call somebody up on the first date and be like, hey, you want to feed people during the pandemic? You know, we've cultivated that relationship and community, and so it's key. Community is really key.
I love it. Houston, Dana, Heidi, thank you for being here today, but more importantly, thank you for the work that you do, the investments you make, the people you employ, the risks that you take. We are a better region and state because of each of you, and we appreciate being here with you today.
Thank you.
All right, what an incredible conversation. I always get inspired by our entrepreneurs and small business leaders. As we think about moving towards a stronger tomorrow, we need to be thinking about new and more expansive opportunities for our region to thrive. The Chamber's Elevate initiative, which was born out of years of work with the Twin West Chamber of Commerce Foundation, is bringing together public-private education and nonprofit sector partners to meet the changing needs of our region. The Elevate initiative is composed of two separate but complementary projects, Elevate Futures and Elevate Business HC. Elevate Futures focuses on making connections between educators, businesses, public sector, and community development organization. And at its heart is an interactive technology platform that links recruitment, skill building, and career navigation into one collaborative system. Elevate Futures provides students and job seekers with a virtual and dynamic way to learn about careers, complete online courses in their field of interest, and connect to local employers and jobs. Today, this public-private partnership includes 10 local school districts and 2 post-secondary partners in the West Metro, and every day there is growing interest across the region to expand the program. Elevate Business is another public-private partnership offering pro bono technical assistance services to businesses in Hennepin County who have been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic and are planning for recovery and the new economy. Now, to learn more about this program, I'm pleased to welcome my great partner and friend, Hennepin County Board Chair, Marion Green.
Thank you, Jonathan, and hello, everyone. I'm thrilled to join you in this virtual environment to celebrate the incredible work we've done together over the last year and to recognize the partnerships that have made it possible. The challenges we continue to face with the ongoing pandemic truly require all hands on deck. Hennepin County's close relationship with the Minneapolis Regional Chamber has been instrumental in responding to the impacts of COVID-19 on our business community. Small businesses make up the majority of jobs in Hennepin County. Their well-being is directly tied to the livelihood of hundreds of thousands of county residents. When the pandemic hit last spring and business restrictions were put in place to curb the spread of the virus, Hennepin County knew we had to act with the same sense of urgency small businesses were feeling. Through the end of last year, Hennepin County provided more than 4,600 small business relief grants, totaling over $44 million. While we know the need is far greater, we're proud to have made this investment. And we could not have done this alone. By working with a network of trusted community and cultural organizations and reducing application barriers, I'm so proud that 44% of these grants went to businesses owned by BIPOC community members, Black, Indigenous, and people of color. Emergency small business relief funding is a critical lifeline that has helped thousands of businesses stay afloat, but it's a short-term stopgap. What's going to help us build a stronger tomorrow are the relationships and support networks that have taken shape across sectors, industries, and communities. A powerful example of this is Elevate Business HC. As Jonathan explained, this is a joint venture between the county and the regional chamber to connect businesses impacted by the pandemic with free technical assistance in a variety of areas to help them adapt and survive. By pairing providers and businesses through an online platform, hundreds of businesses have been able to access free services such as financial planning, setting up online ordering, human resources support, and so much more. As of earlier this week, almost 700 businesses have registered on the Elevate Business HC platform. Hundreds more have participated in peer-to-peer roundtable events and topic-driven webinars. The very idea for Elevate Business came directly out of the Hennepin County Business Advisory Council, a group of 20 diverse business representatives we convened to guide our work to supporting the rapid recovery of Hennepin County businesses. Our shared goal was to make sure that federal CARES Act dollars were invested in an equitable way that benefited as many small businesses as possible. Next, I'm so glad that we're going to hear from Alex and Aaron, co-founders of The Coven, one of the amazing organizations providing technical assistance through Elevate Business HC. The fabulous Alex West Steinman is also a member of our Business Advisory Council. Thank you.
I'm Alex West Steinman, co-founder and CEO of The Coven. And I'm Erin Farrell, Chief Experience Officer and co-founder of The Coven. The Coven is a community and workspace for women, non-binary, and trans folks with a location in Minneapolis and St. Paul. This fall in 2020, we had the opportunity to participate in the Business Advisory Council with Hennepin County, and it was an incredible experience where we got to make decisions on where the CARES dollars were going to help support small businesses who were affected by COVID, which was literally everybody. So one of the things that we decided as a group, super diverse group from every industry across Hennepin County, was to make sure that the dollars were going to underserved communities, to BIPOC business owners, and providing technical assistance, everything from legal to business coaching, and those the impact was incredible. Mm-hmm. We got an opportunity to be a technical assistance provider as well, providing one-on-one services.
Yeah, so that is where our work with Elevate really started. So one of the great advantages of being a part of the Coven community is that there are dozens of industries represented, multiple generations, a number of gender expressions, and certainly a really deep diversity in lived experiences as well. So we were able to provide one-on-one direct outreach as well as advisory to a number of new businesses, people who are considering starting their businesses, and small businesses as well. And then beyond that, just one-on-one time, we were also able to, because of our community, connect folks to a myriad of resources and other folks in the community, resources that could help them develop their business, grow, continue to thrive, hopefully, in this environment. And what that really led to was an ecosystem building rather than just, one-on-one advice. So that was one of the best things about the Elevate project for us. And I mean, frankly, partnering with the county was an absolute dream. They were so wonderful in terms of how supportive they were of us, the wide diversity of folks that were a part of it. And it gave us the opportunity to also meet a ton of other organizations as well.
What we're really excited about in 2021 is continuing to expand the diversity of the network within Hennepin County. We know that oftentimes founders who are Black and Brown don't get an opportunity to participate in programs like this due to lack of information. Yeah. And that's really where we come in. That's where the diverse set of technical assistance providers come in, and that's what we're energized by. In 2021, we look forward to continuing to partner with Elevate Business and Hennepin County.
Thank you, Alex and Aaron. We are so grateful for the partnership and support of the Coven in this work. In so many ways, the Coven represents exactly how we can build a stronger tomorrow, together. As Alex and Aaron said, by building a regional network of small business support and relationships through Elevate Business HC, we're helping businesses get through this pandemic, and we're building long-term infrastructure that will serve us long into the future, ensuring that Hennepin County continues to be a place where businesses and people of all types and backgrounds thrive. Again, my most sincere gratitude to the Minneapolis Regional Chamber and the many partners who have come together in this moment of crisis with an unwavering focus on the future. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you for the continued partnership. And I completely agree with Alex and Aaron. I believe the connectivity, opportunity, and potential of this project is amazing and look forward to continuing that work. I am now going to hand the program over and mask up and exit, I'm told, stage right, to my colleague, Grace Waltz, our Vice President of Public Policy and Advocacy, and Bernie. Welcome.
Thanks, Jonathan. As businesses and nonprofits have battled through the pandemic, they have found increased support and connection with local government. The old axiom is that the government closest to the people serves the people best. And in the midst of this crisis, city governments have stepped up to provide services from housing to support, to creatively expanding outdoor dining, to cash grants to businesses that have been impacted. And we are honored to be joined by 3 innovative and thoughtful mayors from our region for this portion of our annual meeting. Mayor Brad Wierson was elected mayor of Minnetonka in 2017, following 15 years as the city's Ward 3 council member. He's also a newly retired small business owner, as the owner and CEO of Peregrine Partners Consulting. Tim Bussey was elected mayor of Bloomington in 2019, following 8 years on the city council. Tim worked in communications for 20 years at the University of Minnesota, and earlier in his career served as communications director for the League of Minnesota Cities. And finally, Jacob Fry was elected to the Minneapolis City Council in 2013, and as mayor in 2017, he came to Minneapolis in 2006 to run the Twin Cities Marathon and moved here the day after he graduated from law school. And my favorite bio fact of the day, Jacob and his wife Sarah welcomed their daughter Frida to their family in September. So please join me in welcoming our panel. So Mayor Bussey, I'm going to start with you actually. While COVID was the catalyst for economic downturn, we've known for years that our region has a ways to go in terms of providing adequate and affordable housing and temporary shelter and services for those experiencing homelessness. Given the immense need shown by the hotels turned temporary shelters in Bloomington, what have you learned in terms of a strategy as to how the region should be approaching affordable housing?
Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you for having us all here today. I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and thank you for the easy question to start this entire discussion. Solve affordable housing in 2 to 4 minutes. I appreciate that. We'll see what we can do. What we saw, I think, in Bloomington and across the Twin Cities as the pandemic has raged is the enormity and the complexity and the difficulty of the affordable housing crisis in the Twin Cities. And it is there, and it's one that we all know it existed, but it really became very obvious as we got into the crux of the pandemic. And it became clear as it evolved that this isn't a Minneapolis issue. This isn't a Bloomington issue. It's not a Hennepin County, a St. Paul issue. this is an issue that affects all of us. This is all of our issue. And we have to approach it in such, because if we all accept it as our issue, as our problem, then the solutions become all of ours as well. And I think that's an important way of looking at it. And we need to approach this from a regional standpoint. Again, not a Bloomington standpoint, not a Minneapolis standpoint, a regional standpoint. And in my opinion, we have not put the proper emphasis on affordable housing at a regional level as we should have. I mean, we do transportation planning at a regional level. We do planning and economic development at a regional level. We put more emphasis on wastewater at a regional level than we do at affordable housing. And I'm not saying that to denigrate our friends at the Met Council at all, because without them, this problem would be much, much worse. But we just need to do so much more from a regional standpoint. And to get off the soapbox now and to actually talk about what I learned and what we should be doing, the things that I think are very obvious we need to approach, we need a regional funding source and mechanism to fund affordable housing development in the Twin Cities, very, very clearly. We need a common set of ordinances or rules or tools that we can offer to developers to really make sure that affordable housing is something that can be accomplished. We need an aggressive strategy, a formal strategy to preserve our naturally occurring affordable housing. Very proud in Bloomington, the work that we have done with Aon over the past year and a half or so on a couple of projects has preserved affordable housing in Bloomington, especially on the east side over by the Mall of America. We're very proud of that work that we've done. I think we need to look at this affordable housing issue at all of the different levels. I mean, the issue that we saw in the hotels in Bloomington was literally a homelessness issue. And it's an affordable housing issue, but it's at the lowest possible homelessness issue. You look at the different levels that the Met Council sets, that the goals that we're supposed to meet at the different levels of AMI, area median income, 80, 60, 40, 30. In Bloomington, we, at the 60% of area median income, we're knocking the ball out of the park. But once you get down to the 30 and 40% levels, it becomes much, much more difficult. And we need to look at this problem up and down the scale and make sure that we don't just look in one area or one specific place. And finally, whatever we do for a policy, whatever we do for a regional approach to this, it's got to be more than just words. It's got to be more than just words on a paper. We need actual commitment by our leaders in the Twin Cities to take this on. And frankly, I don't see sometimes that type of commitment that we absolutely need at all levels of government from all elected officials. This is a problem that absolutely needs to be solved at a regional level.
And Mayor Beerson, this ties into your question as well, and Mayor Bussey alluded to transit. You know, investments in transit and transportation and infrastructure have long been priorities of the Minneapolis Regional Chamber, and even more so as we think about how we want to emerge from this pandemic stronger and better connected. And Minnetonka is an example of how transit can really reignite development like we're seeing with Opus. And you're also in the process of building a throughway around Ridgedale Mall that will make it easier for people to access without driving a car. So my question would be, what sort of similar investments do you think our region should be making to ensure that we're better connected?
Well, thank you for the question. And there's a lot going on in Minnetonka in two particular areas, as you mentioned, Ridgedale and Opus. And Ridgedale revitalization really has to do with Ridgedale is becoming much more than a shopping mall. Ridgedale is the economic hub, or the commercial hub of Minnetonka and our surrounding area. And Ridgedale is being reimagined from a perspective where, rather than just being a mall, we've got a lot of housing going in the area. We've got, I think, in the last couple of years, we've had 485 units of housing being built, with a smaller portion than I would like of affordable housing there. But we focus on affordable housing there, but we're also making Ridgedale a place that you can use human-powered transit to get there. It's not solely going to be dependent on cars. We're having trails and through Ridgedale and to Ridgedale, and then we are adding amenities to make it more attractive. So Ridgedale is becoming a housing hub, an entertainment hub, a dining hub, as well as a retail hub. And then we've got a new park going actually into Ridgedale proper and connections to Crane Lake, which is a natural area. So we're creating amenities there to make it attractive for residents. But human-powered transit is the key to Ridgedale because it already has strong transit connections to Minneapolis. Then the Opus area is developing significantly with a lot of housing. and a lot of affordable housing. And that's driven by Southwest Light Rail passing through there and the availability of a lot of developable and redevelopable land. And so that is really the high growth area. We've got over 1,000 units of housing underway there. Some is just opening now. The Dominion project is 482 units of affordable housing that really involved a lot of partnerships to get that happening. I mean, the city put money into it through TIF. The state provided grants. The Met Council helped with that. But it's the largest apartment complex in the city of Minnetonka, and it's the largest affordable housing complex in the metro. And that exists because transit is there. And then as we look at investments, clearly investments in trails and connection that don't involve cars is positive. But the other thing that we've learned as we've worked with Opus is the need to future-proof some of these developments, because we're at the cusp of a significant transportation and transit change. And while electric cars and ride-hailing services are now available, things like autonomous vehicles and the whole transformation of how people are going to get around, and automobile companies are going to be becoming transportation providers and subscription services and things like that. And so when you build an apartment complex and you have certain parking requirements, well, there's going to come a day when we don't need those parking requirements. So think about that now while those places are being built, so that the area and the land and the buildings that are going to be used for housing automobiles can be repurposed in a way that makes sense for the future. So the developments really need to have that look for the future, because we're going to have land available, because we're going to need fewer roads, we're going to need fewer parking garages, we're going to need fewer gas stations or no gas stations in the future. And so we have to start thinking about that now, so that we can build the resources and use some of the land and resources that are going to be available for affordable housing, and the very things that Mayor Pussy was talking about.
And Mayor Fry, the issues that the other two mayors have talked about are certainly not foreign to the city of Minneapolis. And we know a lot of work and engagement goes into solving these issues, but of course the world looks really different now. And bringing a broad array of voices to the table is more important than ever. So how do you feel regional and community partnerships should inform these changes?
You cannot accomplish any of this work without regional partnership. It's not like there's this vast cavern between Minneapolis and Bloomington, or Minneapolis and Minnetonka, or Minneapolis and St. Paul. We operate as a regional economy. The Chamber of Commerce, thank you to them. They've been moving forward with that mentality. And whether the issue is affordable housing or economic inclusion or even public safety, these partnerships we are finding are increasingly important. And I think this last year of 2020 has perhaps highlighted that aspect more than at any time in our history. And look at every single one of the issues we've just talked about. Affordable housing. You know, Minneapolis has put record amounts of funding into affordable housing. In fact, we put about 3 times the previous record into funding deeply affordable and low-income housing. Is that enough? No, it is not. Because it's got to be more than all 3 of us doing the work. It's got to be statewide. It has to be a regional solution. Otherwise, all of the expense is put on a few cities in the Twin Cities region, and all of the resources have to be diverted to those cities that are actually, really doing the work. You talk about, economic inclusion or economic growth. If we don't have a regional partnership, ultimately we find that we're competing with each other. Talk about economic inclusion and making sure that we're both attracting and retaining BIPOC communities. If it's just Minneapolis that has the plan, we know from experience that it's not going to work. We have to be partnering with other jurisdictions to making sure that we're retaining every bit of talent that we have on the table. And we know if we don't, we stand to lose billions and billions of dollars collectively as economy if we don't make sure that our Black and brown communities are not just fully accessed, but have the ability to transition, to get hired, and then ultimately to come into some of these leadership roles. And so there's a whole lot of work ahead. And finally, I'll just mention, public safety. if this year hasn't highlighted the need to act in partnership on public safety, I don't know what it's done. You know, I mean, we've seen during the unrest following the horrible killing of George Floyd that we need assistance beyond the city of Minneapolis MPD. We've seen that these issues that so many of our police departments are experiencing, whether it's around public safety or culture shift, they're not necessarily unique to one city. And so having a regional solution is not just important, I think it's absolutely essential. And in getting to that regional solution, you mentioned just a second ago, you got to engage a broad and diverse constituency. Traditionally, I think in the city of Minneapolis, we've done a lot of what I would call faux engagement, where you kind of know what the end decision you're going to get to, and you have this engagement along the way, and you pretend like you're actually taking the input and using it. That whole process we want to flip on its head. We want to have communities of color not just at the table, but also key beneficiaries in the process. And that's ultimately, that kind of empowering, that kind of stepping aside to allow leadership to come forward is exactly what we ultimately need to make that transition.
Thank you so much. And our time is wrapping up, so my last question I'm going to pose to all three of you, and we'll just start with Mary Wearsome and work our way over. So we know the impacts of COVID-19 have not been equitable across our workforce in our communities. So as we look to rebuild and reimagine our economy, what sort of investments should we be making, and how should we be working together as a region to really achieve our collective good? Mayor Wilson, we'll kick it off with you.
Well, thank you. I think we've touched on it. I think housing is the basic building block of cities, and it is fundamental to economic success for anybody in our society. And so I agree with my fellow mayors that we need to really focus on making housing affordable for everyone. And that's easy to say and it's hard to do, but I don't know anybody who doesn't need to live in an affordable house, or a home that they can't afford. We all need to afford our housing, but but housing is fundamental to creating economic opportunity. And without adequate housing for all of our citizens and all of our residents, that fundamental building block and the American dream is not available to our residents. So I think housing is the fundamental key place to start.
Mayor Bussey?
I do think, I agree, housing, but I would even add to that, and without sounding too much like a House shill for the Minneapolis Regional Chamber of Commerce and thinking that I'll get into Jonathan's good graces here, the three things that the Chamber has been talking about for the past few years I think are spot on. Housing, transportation, and workforce development. To advance those three things, I think to keep our eye on those will help us to move us beyond the impacts of COVID-19 and the recession and all of the impacts of the pandemic. It is, our definition of what an essential worker has certainly changed over the past 10 months. And as we look at that, if we look at the three things that I've just talked about, the three things that the Chamber has been working on and working on effectively, if we continue to keep our eye on that ball, I think we will be able to take care of many of the issues that have come up and take care of those essential workers who absolutely need assistance and who need a direction and who need a regional strategy to deal with those three things.
Mayor Bussey's doing my job for me, working in all our issues. And finally, Mayor Frey.
Well, I'll tag on to Mayor Wearsome's first comment, which is housing has to be a foundational element. You can't possibly start thinking about taking the next step in life, getting a job, becoming an entrepreneur, attacking a dream until you have that foundational element of housing. I'm a believer that housing is a right, that everyone deserves that safe place to go home to at the end of the night, to rest their head on the pillow, to rejuvenate for the next day. And as has become increasingly clear in 2020, not everyone has that right. And it's incumbent on us as electeds, as leaders, to provide that foundation and that next rung on the ladder so that people can pull themselves out. And I'll add one other thing, which is just telling the story of who we are in this region. That's going to become increasingly critical over the next several months here in pulling ourselves out of this global pandemic. Remembering what it was that we love and continue to love about Minneapolis and Bloomington and Minnetonka and St. Paul and this whole region, remembering what it was like to come here to First Avenue and have a ball with friends and listen to an extraordinary band play, you know, remembering what it's like to go into a packed bar and enjoying all of the things that we love about this city, because those things are still there, they're gonna come back, and we gotta be telling the story about who we are collectively as a people.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us today and providing such thoughtful answers. And with that, I believe I will kick it back over to Jonathan.
All right, thank you, mayors. Great insights. We appreciate your ongoing and continued partnership. Mayor Bussey, you are welcome to go on the sales roadshow for the chamber anytime. We'd love to have you. I know that we will continue to work alongside you and your teams and be a resource as we navigate the days ahead. So we're coming up to the end of our program, and as we wrap things up, I want to just take a moment to thank all of you who have tuned in and all of you who have partnered with us throughout the year. I want to give a special shout out to my team, the team that produced this event today. We are in a brave new world, and we are trying to deliver and develop content that is of value to all of you watching. We are confident that together we will build a tomorrow where our region's economy is stronger and more equitable. It's going to take all of us together, and we are up to the task. So I want to thank you and say good night from the main room at First Avenue.